Welcome to the DraftKings wide receiver analysis for Week 3. I'm Jason Gilbo, J Gilbo 11. With me is Justin Elick at Big Italy 42. Looking at cash, GPP, and value wide receivers, and quite a bit here. If you're coming over from FanDuel, we do have a couple of the same kind of names, but overall, it's kind of hard to really be different if you're kind of playing both sites.
Yeah, I mean, a couple obvious value plays that we'll get into there. And I mean, we'll kind of just be short and sweet on Antonio Brown. He's the best option, especially on the slates that don't include the Monday night game. So if you can afford him, which you can, if you want to, there's plenty of value. I mean, he's obviously the top option there. So, I mean, we can keep that one short and sweet for you. It's the best receiver in the league against a defense that is kind of like smoke and mirrors right now, I'd say. Their numbers look like they're good against the pass, but neither the Bears or the Browns are very good at, I guess to put it really simply, throwing footballs to each other. They're not very good at anything. So, although they might be now because Brian Hoyer's under center. So the Bears might be a juggernaut pretty soon.
Well done with the Brian Hoyer plug. But yeah, I'm in agreement. Antonio Brown versus Nolan Carroll, it's not really fair.
No, it's not.
Stephon Diggs, 5,100. I think this is probably going to be the chalkiest wide receiver on the board this week. One, because he was in a millionaire maker lineup for week 2. And 2, he's still 5,100.
I mean, he's the 37th most expensive wide receiver on the board, and he has 59 more receiving yards than any other receiver in the league. And it's not, A.J. Green's third in the league. He had 180 of his yards in one game and I think 38 last week. So his numbers are a little skewed, but Diggs' numbers really aren't. He's had over 100 yards in both games, DK bonus for 100 yards. I mean, cash games, it's beyond an obvious play to play him. And I think in GPPs, I'm kind of scared of fading him there as well because he's just so cheap. I mean, you look at the guys who are at wide receiver, and I mean, there's really nobody you're really considering. I mean, Allen Hurns, obviously Travis Benjamin is a nice play, but I don't know why you play him over Diggs. You play him with Diggs maybe. But, I mean, Mike Wallace, John Brown, Victor Cruz, Mohamed Sanu is more expensive. Michael Floyd's more expensive. Golden Tate's more expensive. Like, it's the most obvious play of the week, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And the matchup, I think, is pretty average for him. I think it kind of bodes well for the Vikings because we've talked about the last few pods about the running game not really looking to be effective because of that offensive line. Yeah. And I just think the price, I'm afraid to fade him. I really think if he goes off and you fade him at that price, it's tough to kind of come back.
Yeah, you better hope you nail every other spot.
In terms of GPPs here, Des Bryant, who has been kind of quiet so far, obviously he doubled his targets in week 2 from week 1, so it's good to see that. Certainly a plus matchup here against the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good spot, and we finally saw after week 1, he had 1 catch. Dak Prescott finally just peppering him with targets. He had 12 last week. Had 2 looks, kind of jump ball situations in the end zone, which generally you expect him to come down with those passes. And, he even saw – a little bit of struggles when he saw some Josh Norman last week, but still managed over 100 yards. Obviously, DK with that 100-yard bonus. The Cowboys have to realize fast that, it's time to – and they did last week. It's time to get their playmaker the ball as much as possible. And, I mean, I don't really see any way around him seeing 10-plus targets again in this one. Obviously, the Bears' defense – seems marginally better than what they were last year. Still not a very good defense. And, I mean, this is a spot where if the Cowboys are going to win this game, especially outscoring Brian Hoyer, they're going to need to get Des Bryant the ball.
Yeah, I mean, with Brian Hoyer, I think that kind of focuses more on – if it was Cutler, I think you'd be able to just kind of run the ball and kind of manage. I still think they'll run the ball, but I think Brian's going to have a bigger impact kind of with this Bears offense that might be able to move the ball just a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's not the type – to take it easy in the passing game. We've seen this. He's a high-volume passer, and, I mean, he's got a number 1 receiver, which has always fared well for him, how he had DeAndre Hopkins last year. Alshon Jeffrey, I think, a small level below DeAndre Hopkins as far as talent, but not by much. So he's definitely going to be taking some shots down the field, and we all know he's got nothing to lose.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Marvin Jones here is your second GPP guide, 6,200. On the road with the Packers, obviously you look at the Packers, touchdown favorites. You anticipate Stafford kind of be throwing the ball, especially with the loss of Abdullah. I don't see them running a ton with Riddick. So I like Jones quite a bit here and a pretty reasonable price.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned the other podcast, we expect the Packers, like you said, 7-point favorites. They should put up a ton of points here against the Lions defense that, if you look at the final score last week, it looked like they were better than they really were. in that game. Obviously gave up a ton of points in week 1 to the Colts. So this is definitely an exploitable spot. So Packers will be scoring points. Marvin Jones, I mean, people want to think that Golden Tate's the number 1 receiver there, and Jones came over to be the number 2. But if you ask me, I think it seems pretty clear-cut that Jones has become the number 1 early this season. And that's not to say it's going to stay that way the whole season, but he's been much more productive than Tate has. You know, he's seen 10-plus targets each week and hasn't scored a touchdown yet, but he definitely has that upside. I was at the game that he scored 4 touchdowns for the Bengals. And, I mean, we know the guy, a great possession receiver. He's not much of a deep threat, but I mean, he's a guy that's got great hands. You can rely on him to make plays, and I mean, he's a pretty big receiver too. So he's a good option in the red zone as well. We just haven't really seen that yet from the Lions.
It looks like he's the guy Stafford trusts the most so far, which is nice to see for a guy who's only been with this team for 2 games. In terms of value here, same guys we talked about on FanDuel. I think these are kind of the obvious guys that you need to be looking at. Travis Benjamin here first, 5,200 against a battered Colts secondary.
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple play. We mentioned him and Diggs both around that same price. If you want to go cheap and then make your third wideout be a guy like Antonio Brown, you can easily go with that trio. That's probably not a good strategy in GPPs because those are all going to be highly owned guys, but in cash games it makes a lot of sense. Or, you know, go down to Philip Dorsett, who has the price that Benjamin had last week, $4,400. He's crazy cheap. If that $800 helps you get, you know, a D'Angelo Williams or something like that into your lineup, then I don't think you can really go wrong with either one. I do think Benjamin will probably be slightly less popular on DK just because of that price difference. But, I mean, I think both guys are going to be 20+% owned easily, though.
Yeah, I think so, too, especially to 4,400. It just seems so cheap for a guy who's going to step into wide receiver 2 type volume in a matchup where I think it's going to be kind of a collective effort as far as who guards him, whether it's Ferret, whether it's Flowers, Hayward, whoever kind of gets him. I think it's just going to be they'll move them around to kind of get them in space. So I think that's where they kind of go and be a little bit safer than we actually think.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not going to find a higher volume passing attack than the Colts. I mean, this is a team that they don't care about establishing the run. It's pass, 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 and you wonder why Andrew Luck gets shoulder problems. That's weird.
Can we stop trashing my Colts for once? One pod.
No. Give up less than 30 points for a week, and then we'll give them a break.
We can't.
I know. That's why we're playing. Your options for top options this week are anyone that you see at Colts.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be. I'm fine with that. I'm glad I'm not the homer where I just don't take guys against my team because it would not be profitable.
You know, I'm the same way. I've been playing Steelers all week, and I mean, or all week, all year, and I mean, I'm not too proud to admit when the team that I hate is the best play. So,
yeah. So that's going to wrap things up with the DraftKings wide receiver analysis. Be sure to head on over to Daily Fantasy Cafe, check out our great tools and content.